I know some of you are in the process of writing goals. The goal due date is probably coming up pretty quickly. So let's talk about some of the things that you need to know about goals. If you're using our goal system, there's a 6-step life cycle. And that sounds kind of like a lot, but it's really not. We just want to break it down so you know everything that has to happen. Step one starts with the teacher at the very beginning. It might be at the beginning of the year, it might be in summer PD, or it might have even happened in May after your summative conference. But the teacher appraisee goes in and creates the goal. During that process, the goal state is unsubmitted. You're just working on it, and all of the fields are editable. Step two usually happens whenever your district's goal deadline comes up. T-Test says during the first 6 weeks of school, districts set their own calendars for when those goals should be completed. But at that point, the appraiser who created that goal will go in and click a submit button. We're going to look at that in just a few minutes. At that point, all fields are still editable, but the goal state changes to submitted, and your appraiser can now see the goal and go in to approve it. You can continue to work on the goal up until it gets approved. So that would be step three. After your deadline has passed, your appraiser is going to go in and they're going to look at the goals. They're going to either send you a message saying that your goal needs something before they can approve it. So that's a way that they can coach you as you create a stronger goal. Or they're going to say, yes, that goal looks good, and they're going to click the approve button. And then your goal gets moved into the approved state. At that point in time, some of the fields are locked. You can't change the goal statement anymore, or the success criteria, or the standards, or the dates. I shouldn't say you can't change them. You can't edit them in its current state. But if you think of something that's important enough that you're wanting to add it in there, there will be a button that says edit approved goal, and you can go back through the submission process with those changes. But you can't make changes to those parts without your appraiser being looped in. So that's why it takes you back through that approval process. The goal will be in the approved state at that point, and it will stay there through step four, which lasts the majority of the year. That's where you're going to spend most of your time. In step four, you'll continue to work on the goal, adding action items as you think of them or as they come up, um, planning for other action items, collecting evidence that shows that you are completing your goal, and then communicating with your appraiser throughout that process. So that's going to be a back and forth process ongoing from the time your goal is approved until we get to the end of the year. And step five happens right before you go into the summative conference. So at the summative conference window, you're going to go in and decide if you think you have completed your goal. If you do, you will mark it complete. That doesn't mean that you have control over when it's completed because it'll still go to your appraiser for confirmation, but you're going to indicate that you believe that you have completed everything that you said you would do in your goal. At that time, you will also have uh, possibly every district is a little different, but you might have a goals reflections document that you will complete at that point in time where you go in and select your goals. It will populate in there. You don't have to retype the goals. And then you'll answer some questions to reflect on how things went. And that will give you a conversation starter when you get into step six, which is the summative conference or the end of the year conference, where goals are part of that conversation. And you will have marked your goal completed and you will have reflected on your goals. And then together, you and your evaluator will decide if in fact that goal is finished. If they say yes, I agree, I think you're good to go, then it can be marked as archived. Or they may say, I don't think you're quite there yet. I would like for you to continue working in this area next year, and you can make a copy of your goal and change the dates and have that be your new goal going forward. Okay, so that's the life cycle of a goal. Some of you may have, through the years, been using or have been shown the SMART goal model for writing good goals. And this is our goal interface. I just wanted to talk a little bit about how it works really well with that same SMART goal process that you may have used in the past. The S is for specific, and that's going to be in your goal statement. So where you put that first general information, that's your goal statement. That's where you're going to be as specific as possible. The M is for measurable. So that's going to come in your success criteria. How will you measure that goal? This item is actually measurable and results focused, so it's going to kind of kill two birds, but you're going to put all of that information in there about what measurement you're going to use and what results you're going to look at to determine your goal completion. The achievable A in the SMART goal model is going to be with the action items. So you are required to add at least one action item before you can create your goal, but you'll add additional things throughout the year that you're going to accomplish. And you can even put due dates on there. It tells you that the due date is optional. I do recommend them. And when I jump over into the interface in just a minute, I'll show you why I recommend them. And then the T in SMART is for time bound. There are actually two areas. The main one is up at the top. This says when you're going to have your goal completed. So that's your target completion date for the entire goal. But you can also have those due dates on your action items, which makes those milestones time bound as well and kind of helps move you along through the process. So if you're used to that SMART goal process, all of those elements are in our goal model. Okay, I'm going to jump over into the actual software and show you the creation of a goal. So I'm going to go in as a teacher. When you go in as a user, an appraisee of any type, you will have the steps and tasks of your process outlined. So I'm going to go to the beginning of your goal setting. Yours might not be called that exactly. It might be called self-assessment or goal setting. It might just be called beginning of the year. Whatever that step is, that's what your district has named it. But then it will expand with the little drop down so that you can see the different tasks that are included. In my process, there's a self-assessment. A lot of districts use that. It's part of a form that's been around for long, the goal setting and professional development form that came from the state. And so as a user, I would go in, I would always set my grade level and subject area. That's something that you're going to do with everything, and so are your evaluators. So I would set that in. And then I'm going to have a section where I identify data sources that I have about my students. What do I have access to in terms of data? And how can I use that to determine what my goal should be, and then later on determine if I actually met that goal. So the same data sources can be used for both parts of that process. So I might say I want to look at state student data, which is going to be STAR test results. We might have a CUME folder that we pass up from grade level to grade level. There might be some other things. I might be creating a diagnostic test that I'm going to do, or maybe I'll call it that one right there. So I'm going to identify those elements that I'm going to use to sort of research before I create my goal. There are also some data sources about me that I want to look at as well. I want to look at my formal evaluation results. I want to maybe talk to my team, peer feedback, maybe my department head, and then I can also analyze my own practice. So I can go in and say, well, I want to look a little deeper into how I'm using data or how I'm not using data and how I can improve upon that. So I'm going to identify those sources that I can use to help me determine my goal. Then there's a section where you can put in areas of strength and weakness. This is a great place to put your area of reinforcement and refinement from your past evaluation, because that's something that's been identified by your evaluator that they would like you to be working on. So you could plug that in here, and then any other thoughts that you have in these areas. The goal of this document is to funnel your thinking down until you've decided on what your goal should be. So after you've identified those areas, you have some questions about professional development, how it will help with this process, what you need, or what you're going to need as you go through the process to support you in this goal. So you'll answer those four questions, and then hopefully you will have come to a decision that I think my goal needs to be about data and assessment and knowledge of students. So that's what I'm going to work on based on what I've thought and researched in this prior document. At the bottom, it tells me after I complete it, I'm going to submit it so my appraiser can see it. But this is not where I actually write the goal. This is a pre-goal planning document. So I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to say submit to appraiser. And when I do that and go back to my process, it's going to show in here as created. And then what this one has been submitted. The one I just did has not, because I didn't really fill it out all the way. But I can go in, and my principal at this point will be able to see what my thought process is as I go into the goal writing process. The next part is for me to write my professional goals. So I mentioned earlier that I like to have those due dates on my action items, and this is why, because it's going to give me this graphic. This is the timeline of my goal. The dotted line is where I am right now. So it's kind of like the map at the mall. I am here, and we are moving that dotted line to the right through the year. When I get to this tick mark, that's something I said I was going to do. That's one of my action items. So as my dotted line gets closer to my tick mark, I know I need to go in and start thinking about how am I going to get that done? And I might have several of those tick marks throughout the year as I add in additional action items that are going to kind of give me those milestones throughout the goal work to keep me on track so that I'm not just scrambling at the end of the year to pull everything together. Okay, so that's the visual. I'm going to go in and start a new goal. So I'm going to click on the plus sign to start a goal, and you get this wizard. This is what we saw in the image before, where I was saying this, it could relate to the SMART goal process. In this first general information, my recommendation to anybody writing a goal is to put the year at the beginning of it, the school year. This will help when you go in later to look at something in the archive to you rather than having to open all the goals to find the one you want. If you have the year at the beginning of it, it will make it much easier to locate. This is going to be an I will statement, and it should include some degree of specificity. That's one of the things that we're trying to do on the SMART model, and it's just something that will help you have a goal that you can actually complete. You can have it start the day that you write it, or if you write your goal in the summer, you might not have it start until the first day of school with kids, but you can change this start date to be whenever you think the goal actually begins. And then the target completion date is going to be when it's finished. Now, I'm not going to finish all this work today. I'm going to work on this goal all year long. So I want to move ahead, and I'm going to say middle of April is when I'm going to plan to wrap up my goal. That way I know I'll be finished with it by the time I go into my end of year conference with my evaluator. You'll notice that this has an asterisk here at the target date, and so did my what is your goal before I wrote something in there and made it scooch up. It had an asterisk as well. That means it's required. So I have to have a target completion date. I have to have something in this goal statement. It won't let me move ahead without that. I also have to have a success criteria. Here, I also want to be specific, and I want it to be measurable and results focused. Those are the two parts of the SMART model that I want to concentrate on. But the format is kind of up to your district and what they want. It can be a list of sources of information that you're going to use to show that you completed your goal. It could be a percent or a number increase. So it could be that you're going to have a specific measurable, actual quantifiable thing in there that you can put in your as your success criteria to measure how you did. Or it could be a narrative of what will my classroom look like if I have completed my goal. Any of these are acceptable in our system. The correct answer is what your district says you need to do. So this is a good thing to talk about with your evaluator when you have your goals conference at the beginning of the year or throughout the writing process to find out exactly what they want to see in that success criteria. The next step is to identify the standards. These are the T-test dimensions that are related to my goal. And that's where the document we did previously will help out because I identified from that document that I think I should be working on data and assessment and knowledge of students. So I'm going to select those two. I'm also always going to come down to the bottom and select 4.2 as one of my dimensions because it's a goal and I am demonstrating my ability to write a goal with my goal. So I want to include that one as well. I have two in addition to the goal setting one. I don't really count the goal setting one because it's more about the goal itself and not the content of my goal. But I have an unofficial rule of three. If I ever have more than three, or when I hit the three mark on the standards that I put in there, not that that's not okay to have, but I want to make sure that I am not making my goal unachievable. So if I have too many of those dimensions, I'm going to go back and reevaluate my goal statement. Did I make it too broad? Am I trying to include too much? Because if I am, it's going to be harder for me to accomplish that goal. So I just use this as a touch point just to say, okay, am I trying to cram too much in there? Do I need to break my goal up and just do part of that right now? So it's just a thing to consider as you're going through the process. The next thing that is required is at least one action item. So I can't even create my goal down here at the bottom until I have at least one action item in there. So usually for me, there's going to be some professional development required or recommended for my goal. And so that's usually my first action item. And I would go ahead and set a due date for that. I'm going to give myself until a couple of weeks from now to find some professional development related to my goal and attend that professional development. Once I have an action item in there, I have to save it. I have to save that one action item with this create button. Once it has a pencil and it's telling me I can add another one, I know this one has been saved. So I have my one that's the requirement. I could go ahead and add some more now if I have some on my mind, or I could click create professional goal now and go to the main screen. I'm going to switch over to one that's already written so that you can see what it looks like. This is where I would land after I put my goal in, and I get all my required elements and I click create goal. It's going to bring me to this page. So again, I want to have the year on there. Um, I want to have my success criteria in whatever format my appraiser wants to see. I want to have my due dates set. I have my standards selected. I have one action item, and I can review this. I can continue working. I can get a flashing cursor as long as that box is gray. I can get a flashing cursor and continue to write. I can continue to edit my dates if I decide to change that. The next step for me, that step 2 in the process, was submitting it for approval. So I'm going to go ahead and click the submit for approval button. And now that button is gone, but I can continue to work. I continue to evaluate or edit that document. Nothing has changed except that it's been submitted. My principal will then go in and look at my goal, and hopefully they will approve it. And then once that goal is approved and I go back in as a teacher, now those boxes at the top are no longer gray. I cannot get a flashing cursor. I can't edit those right now. I can't edit my standards. I can't edit my target completion date. If I did want to make a change, I could go up and edit the approved goal and go through that process again. But that's the only way I can edit once the goal is approved. The whole process, both before approval and after, you can message and your appraiser can message you here in this box. So I could say, I'm having trouble finding PD. Do you know of anything? And when I click the send button, it's going to do two things. One, it's going to add it here and document what I said and who said it and when. So I have date and time step, the question that I asked. It's also going to send an email to my appraiser saying that they have a message in my goal so that they can come back here and they can respond here. And we can have a back and forth conversation throughout the year where we talk about my goal, my needs, what coaching they can give me, anything that I need support on with my goal. I can message back and forth with my evaluator. I can also spend some time adding additional action items. This is not locked out now that my goal is approved, so I could go in and think of other things that I want to do, or maybe I think of something, hey, I just did something and I should put that in my goal because that's related. I can go in and add that, after the fact if need be, but I'm going to continue to document those actions that I take throughout the year that contribute to my goal. And then I'm also going to add evidence. Hopefully there'll be some evidence for every action item. Doesn't have to be a one-to-one, but there'll be something in there that's related to that action step. So there are multiple types. I can go in and choose the text box and I can just write anecdotal evidence. So I can tell a story about something that happened in class or something that I encountered, and my work with my goal has helped me with that. So I can explain that, reflect on it. That would be anecdotal evidence about my goal. I can also select a file upload. I would go and find that file wherever it is on my computer and write a description that explains why I think it's good evidence and how, I learned from it or how it helped me with my goal. So again, description and reflection, but it can be any file type. It can be a Word document, PDF, spreadsheet, a JPEG image, a PowerPoint presentation, a video, an audio file. Any of those things can be uploaded as evidence for your goal. The third type would be a link. This is used sometimes if teachers have a teacher website or a place where they can post school projects and things like that. It may be a link to that. And I would put in the URL here in the link, and then in the description box again, describe and reflect where do they go when they get to that link, what are they looking for, and why is it related. It can also be used if, in my particular case, I said I was going to attend professional development, but if I had written as an action step instead that I was going to do some research in that area, I could put a link to some of the PDF documents or websites that I researched in preparation for my goal. And so that could be evidence as well. And then the final type is a workshop portfolio. If your district is using our professional development side, then when I choose that option, it's going to show me all the courses that I've taken and gotten credit for, and I can go and find the one that I want to reference, and then I would say, what did I learn and how did it help me with my goal? So I said I was going to attend professional development. This could be evidence of that particular action step. So you can continue to add action items and evidence throughout the year. I'm gonna go back to my process, and the goal wizard that you walk through at the beginning looks pretty much the same with the student growth goal. So I'm going to go into one that's already created. Again, at the beginning, I still recommend the year, but for student growth goals, I recommend that you put the grade level and subject area as well. This is going to be tied to whatever is being used to measure your students for that year. So I would put that as the beginning of my goal statement as a student growth goal, and it also is going to be a student's will statement. You'll still have to have a success criteria, target date. You'll still have access to the messages for back and forth coaching. Instead of dimensions for your student growth goal, you will select the standards, the TEKS that are related to the skill area that you wrote about in your student growth goal. So you would go in and select the specific standards that relate to that goal. There may be more. Sometimes when you look at a skill, there's a cluster of standards that are related to that goal. And so you may have more standards here than you do in your professional goal. You will continue to add action items and evidence just like you do with your professional goal. So all of that is the same. You will also have the option of adding a student portfolio, which is another way to measure students. The student portfolios is going to be a separate session, and I think it's the next session. Um, so we will be talking about student portfolios as a separate thing in another session. Just like the professional goals, I would submit it for approval. Once I've submitted it and it's approved, then I will have that button. Let me go back to my professional goal because it has been approved already. Once my goal has been approved, I will have that button at the end of the year for me to mark it complete when I think I'm done with all the work.
Hey, Paige, there was a question about editing those goals.
Okay.
And so when you're editing the goals after it's already been submitted,
Mhm.
will I have to start over or can I just go back in there and edit that goal specifically?
You don't have to start over. In fact, I'll do that right now. I'm going to say I want to edit an approved goal, and it tells me I have to go back through the approval process. When I open it up, it just opens it back up. So all of my stuff is still there. I didn't
Mhm.
lose anything. I can just make whatever edits that I need to make, but I will have to submit it for approval again. So I do have to go through that process, but I don't have to redo any of this. And at the bottom, it's going to put a history. So my appraiser can go in and see, okay, here's what it said when I approved it before. What did she change? And they'll be able to see, oh, okay, yeah, that is good. And then they can approve it again. But you won't lose anything that's in there. Even evidence or action items that you've added in will still be there. You'll just be making whatever changes you need to make up here to those things that were locked down and then resubmitting it. Good question.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you. So I did also want to talk about finding professional development that's related to your goal. Because as you're going through and working on your goal, that's frequently something that's an action item or will assist you in some way. So when you come over to courses to look for any professional development that is offered, I can scroll down and find the frameworks. And the frameworks are going to be, oops, that's the wrong one. T-test V2 is the one I'm looking for. So whatever process your district is using, they might be using the Alt D1 that has the lesson internalization language, or they might be using just this regular T-test one. But I would go in and say, what is my district offering on data and assessment? Well, there's one here that is tagged to that. And I also said knowledge of students. There are some more in here that are tagged to that. So I could go in and find sessions that are specifically related to the areas that I wrote my goal about. This is also a good place to look for professional development related to your area of reinforcement and refinement, which hopefully are kind of hand in hand with your goal. So you can use the frameworks section of the search for courses to find things that specifically target your needs. All right, we talked about action items already and evidence already. Any other questions before I turn it over to Armando?
I do not see any other questions right now, Paige.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'm taking the screen share over real quick. So, excited to be here with you all today to talk a little bit about Aware. Again, this is the Get to Know series for this Go About is going to be focused on teachers and what they're doing and what they can do in the classroom. And so today, this is our agenda for the Aware side of things. We're going to talk a little bit about levels of assessments. We are also going to talk about team tests, pre-built assessments, retest, and administer. And so we'll be sharing that with you. And yes, the slide deck is going to be shared with you all in the follow-up email that will go out with the recording as well. So don't worry about that. So we're going to be live in the software so that we can look at this together. And so the first thing that we're going to talk about, actually, I'm going to go back to the presentation because this is the levels of assessments that we were going to actually talk about. So within Aware, there are 4 different levels of assessments. We have a district level assessment. And so these are individuals that are creating the assessment at the district level and then essentially releasing that to the campuses, and teachers are administering it to their students. Any of the data that's being collected is going to be viewable by anyone who has access to the students. So that means potentially district leaders, school leaders, and then obviously the teachers of record. The next level down is school assessments, and this is the same thing. Someone has to be given these rights to build these assessments. Those assessments are being given to the teachers so the teachers can proctor these assessments to their students. Any of that data, once again, is viewable by anyone with access to the students themselves. We'll skip over team tests, but know that all teachers, because you all are sending out the rosters to our system, we understand that you all are teachers and that you all have students rostered to you. If that's the case, you are able to create assessments, you're able to analyze data, and oops, here you go. You're able to analyze data. And some of the ideas behind the teacher test is you may want to use this for bell ringers, quizzes, exit tickets, maybe a knowledge check or a quick check, or even a writing sample. This is going to help you all make decisions about what is happening in the classroom. So really rapidly, you'll be able to do that, right? There are no additional roles or rights that need to be given. But the main thing about teacher tests is that only the teacher can analyze the data. So the response to that, or the option that you all have available, is converting that teacher test to a team test. And there are some benefits in doing this. The first benefit is obviously you can be part of a team. So it could be a team of 1 person, or it could be a team of 2 or 3 teachers that are working together to create the assessments that you all need created. This is going to be, collaboration. This is going to help you all out with editing and making sure that there are no, misspelled words, or that all of your questions have the correct answer choice in there as well. And then the main thing is that data is viewable by anyone with access to your rostered students. So if your school leader needs access to your students, they will be able to see the data. School district leader needs access to your students, they will be able to see the data. And then obviously all the teachers of record will also have access to see how the students are performing. Don't freak out and think, oh man, I need to give all of these principals, all of these leaders, district leaders, access to the team. No, because it is a team test, they will automatically have access to it. Okay. So a couple of things. When we're on the overview page, we have a couple of things that we can do as we are looking at assessments on the overview page. On the right-hand side in this card here, we have the ability to go ahead and click on an assessment and start working on that assessment right away. We also have the option to click on new assessment, and we can click create new standard assessments. So in this example, we'll be jumping over here to the author section. And then we will be looking at what this is going to allow you all to do. So here, I just wanted to show you all that you all do have some filters available at the very top. As you all are working through your, throughout the school year, and maybe you're only focusing on math for creating assessments right now at this point in time, you can apply some filters here. And notice I have 51 assessments in my table itself. I'm able to come over here, apply some additional filters, and say, you know what, I only want to look at math. And now I'm at 46. And so you can apply as many filters as you need. And then you can also come over here to the right-hand side and save these filters. Up to 20 filters can be saved. And you can go ahead and name it whatever you'd like. Hit create. It'll show that it's been saved. You'll have the little icon change over here on the right-hand side. And when you jump out of it and then go back into author, it won't automatically set, but if you click on it again, notice that you can select it here from the radio button, or on the right-hand side, you have the option to click on set as default. So when you do that, that means anytime you jump out of author and you go back into it, you will see that in here, right? So this is a great tool for you all to just kind of focus in on only the things that you're focusing in on. So if you're creating those stars, or those math assessments, then you can create a filter specifically for that. So first thing that we're going to talk about really quickly is the option to create those teams. So you do have the option right here under the gear icon, or the settings icon for assessments, to click on create new team. When you create that new team, it's going to display a wizard. You can come over here and name it. I would definitely name it something specific. So I'm going to put, webinar, and then we're going to put 5th grade ELAR, right? I can also put a description, so on and so forth. I do encourage you all to be specific with the naming, just because if there was a problem where someone accidentally removed everyone from the team itself, then a principal or a district leader can go back in there and add you back to the team. When you remove someone from that team, they will no longer have access to those team tests. So if you inadvertently remove everyone from the team, then you will no longer have access to make copies of those team tests if you needed to. On the bottom right side of the screen, you'll click on next, you'll click on finish, and then you'll see this page pop up real quick, and you'll have the option to go back in there and make some edits if you all needed to. And here you can see that I'm already part of the team, so I'm the current member, but I can add a staff member. So I'll click add staff, type in here a colleague of mine here, Smith, and look for her by clicking the little magnifying glass, select her name, and then click on select staff. Once I do that, now she is part of the team. And when she logs in, she will actually see the assessments here under the team test section right here. So she'll see the team test. And when she hovers over it, or if she looks at this a little bit, increases this, she'll see what team this is a part of. And you're able to go ahead and say, okay, this is the assessment that I need to work on, right? So these are some neat ways for us to go ahead and essentially allow this assessment to be shared with the team, and then so that we can also see the data as well. Okay, so let's say that we've already started creating an assessment and we want to go in there and share this assessment with the team. So let's pretend that this assessment is the one that we want to share. There's a couple of things that we can do. A lot of times teachers are very possessive of the work that they've done. And so I know that in the past, we may have had, in the old days when we used to have filing cabinets full of assessments, we would take a sheet out, go and scan it, and then give that scan or that copy to our neighbors, right? We don't want them to have the original. So that's a great thing to do if we are going to go into the author section here, and then notice there is a action button on the right-hand side of the screen. This action button allows you to preview the test, or it allows you to copy the test. So when you preview the test, it'll actually show you what the test will look like. And so if I go in and find a good one to preview, like this one right here, it'll show you what the assessment will look like. It'll tell you how many questions there are on it. And then I can go ahead and hit copy, right? If I'm just going to do this from the copy test option here, it'll say, okay, fill out the information that you all want. And I'm going to go ahead and add that this is to share with team. That way, I always keep the original because remember, when we share it with a team, there's a possibility that someone on the team, they may not do this intentionally, they might go in there and accidentally delete stuff, right? So if that's the case, and we want to maintain an actual copy of it, let's create one and change the name to say to share with team. When we do that, on the administration tab here, remember all of your assessments are being generated as a teacher test. If you are a teacher, you will see that the teacher test option is selected here in the test type. And so the test type is like another bucket where these assessments go in. When I go into the administration tab here, I have a couple of options. I can click on share a copy. That will essentially email someone else that copy of that assessment. They'll be able to review it. And or I can go ahead and click on share with team. When I click on share with team, the dialog box is going to pop up and it's going to allow you to select the team that you want to share it with. And so here I have the webinar 5th grade ELAR, which is the one that I just created, and it will require you to select the appropriate test type. So more than likely, your district has already set up some sort of process for your team test to go and live under. When you go in there, you have that ability to select your test type here. So for example, this one is going to be a common campus assessment. I'm going to go ahead and click on CCA. There's an option here that will allow you to select the appropriate performance levels. If there were performance levels that were already set when you created the original assessment, you can just not even check this and hit convert test. Or if we wanted to overwrite those original performance levels, we can click on use performance levels from the new test type. And that may have some performance levels that are already pre-populated. The pre-populated performance levels are pre-populated at the district level, meaning someone has gone in there and managed these performance levels. So there may be a need to make these changes, or you may just leave them alone and then get some direction from your district leadership as to whether or not you need to make changes for this, right? So those are a couple of things that you have to take into consideration when you all are preparing to share an assessment with a team. Once you do that and you convert it to a team test, it now changes slightly. And so before, we didn't have the availability or the options to change the available dates here. So because I changed it to a team test, I now have the ability to say, okay, when is this assessment going to be made available to the students? I can come over here and say, you know what, we're testing on September 8th and we're going until, the next week, right? So I can come over here and make all of those selections as needed, or to the end of the week. There you go, the 12th. And now it's saving. As a reminder, it's saving automatically, so you don't have to go in there and automatically save something or press a button to save. As long as you have connection to the internet, it's going to be sending the information over to us every few seconds. Okay. Okay, so once you're ready to administer this assessment to students, I can go ahead and click on the status, and then I can go ahead and select active. So that means that when it is 9/8, that day comes, that means I will be able to start administering this assessment to my students. Okay, so let's show another option here that you all may have access to. So I'm going to expand my navigation panel on the left-hand side, and I'm going to show you all the pre-built tests. When you all click on pre-built tests, you all will see another table very similar to what we saw earlier under author. And we have this information here that's available where I can use my filters at the very top and I can say, okay, I only want to look at a certain test type, right? I can come over here, look at the specific test type. Maybe I only want to look at STAR assessments that have been created. I can hit apply and I can preview an assessment just by clicking the actual hyperlink on the left-hand side. And then I can preview that specific assessment, similar to what we were doing earlier with author. The only difference is the preview is no longer on the right-hand side. It is now the actual hyperlink itself. When you are ready and you've made a decision to go ahead and copy this assessment to your um, author table, I can click on copy test. And now I have the ability to go ahead and name it accordingly. I can go in there, adjust the subject as well as the grade level, and then I can come over here and add the course. Adding the course is going to associate the appropriate standards with this specific assessments. And now you'll have all of the same information that you can come over here and add the performance levels and the cut scores that go with it as well. So that is pre-built assessments. Once you go ahead and do this, if I go ahead and add the course really quickly, so I think this was English 1 if I'm not mistaken. The first time you come in here to the curriculum courses, it may take a few seconds for it to load. I'm going to find the division. And if I could just find high school, there it is. And then come over here to English, English 1, I have it selected. I'm gonna hit generate copy. And then once again, you have the same options over here to edit the questions if you needed to, delete some questions, and then set all of these different parameters as well and the settings. So you can come in here and do the same thing as share with a team. So you can get this assessment available so you all can share with your colleagues in your class or your campus. Okay, so there's one more option here on the author table, and it is called post assessments. So what is a post assessment? A post assessment is an option for you all. If you all have if you all have a license to Aware Premium, you have the ability to create a retest for your students. And so essentially what it's going to do is if I click on this icon over here on the right-hand side, the little plus sign, it's going to give you an option to create a retest. And so what it's doing is it's looking at your original assessments and it's identifying all of the different question types. It's giving you that option to preview this question itself as well. And then it's telling you all, okay, what type of interaction is it? It's a text entry. Some of them are just selected response, so multiple choice and multiple selection. Others are also have the item bank as well. So depending on what your all's district has set up, you all may see Teaks Bank in there, or you may see Teaks Resource System or Texas Test Maker or Mastery. Any of those item banks can be used to essentially create a blueprint for you so that you can create a retest. And so we also have the ability to add complexity. So if there was already a complexity or DOK, depth of knowledge, on the actual question itself, you'll be able to select it from this list or it'll bring it in. And then you can also see your standards as well and see what those standards are. When you go to the next step, so here I have all of these options in here. There's about 15 questions. And then I go into the next step and I hit OK. Oops. So some of these did not have standard selected, right? Because it's going to try to match based off of the specific standards that we have. So I'm just going to remove some of these here real quick, just for the sake of time. And then when I hit continue, it's going to try to create a blueprint and it's going to try to show me that there were some options that matched. So here it's showing that this question matched. So question number 1 matched. There was a question that had to be replaced with a different type of question. So instead of this one, the original one, it actually replaced it with a different question here. And I can preview that specific question. I can look at all this. All of this looks great. I'm ready to generate that retest. And so what's going to happen is now the teacher is going to be able to actually administer this assessment to their students or this retest. So what that's going to look like, after you go in there, you adjust any of these settings. Remember, this retest is going to only be for teachers. This is, again, going to help the teacher make some informed decisions about what needs to happen in the classroom. Are they going to have to reteach something? Did the reteaching work? Do they need to provide additional intervention? They will go in there, set this as active. And so now when I go to the administer tab here, I'm going to see this option here where I can go ahead and then turn on online test proctoring. When I do that, it's going to give me the option to click on this assessment right here. And then we follow the same steps that we would follow before. Now I see all of these assessments and I'm able to go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to select all, Or maybe only a few students showed up to class today. I'm only going to turn this on for those specific students. I will select them here using the checkbox. And then on the top, next to the assessment name, it has the option to make the selected assessment available to only those students. And now when the students log in, they will see those specific assessments, right? So this is going to be that option for you all to do that retest for these students. One of the things that I wanted to share with you was when students are also working on their assessments and they're working through their strategies, we've noticed that some best practices across the state have been to encourage students to go in there and type out their notes. So as they're taking the assessment, so as you can see, the student is still in progress and they've already typed out a note. On question 1, they wrote, "I'm not sure how to answer this. I get stuck on step 2." This is a great strategy just so that the teacher, can realize or understand, oh man, they're getting stuck on this step. I know how to provide some intervention and some support for these students, right? So this is going to be a great option for you all to kind of leverage as well. And again, all of the same options that you all have before are all available here. I can come over here, select all, and then make the assessment unavailable to the students as well if you are done with them testing. So a lot of information. All of the help articles that we are going to share with you all will be shared with you all after the presentation or after about 48 hours so we can process everything. So I know that was a lot of information. Hopefully it was helpful. I know it was really quick, but I want to go ahead and send it over to Allison so she can continue and have a little bit of a chat about Beacon.
Thank you, Armando. All right, y'all. Yeah, so let's just talk quickly about Beacon. So, Beacon launched to over the summer, and I'm going to show y'all teacher features. So we are looking at a sample planner here, and I just want to show you some elements of Beacon. So you're looking at the planner. I want to point out a few things. First of all, you can put pictures into your lesson planner, and this is actually what we call the teacher planner. So this is a scope of what is to be taught during that day. So I'm looking at this day here, April 28th. It's instructional day 179. And you can see that I have lots of different things that for me as a teacher, I'm able to look at and go, okay, like, oh, that's a question I need to ask them. Oh, here's my evaluation. This particular plan is built on, it's a template, and you can utilize a different template for every day of the week if you wanted to. So there's no more of that like stamping and it's locked in. It's literally just all there for you, where you can customize it and make it your own as a teacher. You can also filter these blocks by color, so you can designate certain blocks to let you know information and then easily find it, because no one has time to be digging for things, y'all. So when we think about feedback, maybe we want to make that in green. So here we have, okay, I'm filtering just to see my green blocks, and that's where my feedback is, so I can see that. Also, I want to point out that whenever we're looking at our Beacon planner, over here in that right-hand side, you'll see these little icons. I have shared this planner with different folks. So you can have a team planner that you can contribute to. You can have a planner that you're all just collaborating on, or your entire team can see what you're planning for that day. You can also add everything you need to make your plans here in the Curriculum Explorer. So that's where you find things like your standards for your different preps. You've got your lessons that are provided to you by your district, as well as resources. Here are some instructional strategies that you can indicate that are happening there in your planner for that day. So here, May 1st, we worked on focused listening. We utilized this lesson plan on division, as well as these problem sets that were resources, and we worked on these standards. So you can see that you can indicate different pieces that you're bringing into your classroom each day by utilizing the different elements of Curriculum Explorer. And I do want to show you that, here at Eduphoria, we are always working to be better together. So one thing to show you is that whenever you're in your planner as a teacher and you have your plan going, you can actually hop over here to your curriculum explorer. And if you have lessons, or I'm sorry, if you have assessments rostered to you and aware, you can actually bring those assessments in and pop them into your planner. That way your team knows, hey, she's giving an assessment this day. And so whenever you're ready to proctor that exam, you can just click on it and it literally pops you over into Aware and you can begin proctoring the exam from right there in your Beacon planner. Um, you're also able to filter different things whenever we're here in our standards. You know, Beacon does support cross-curricular instruction. So we can take a look at actually every standard. So when I was in the classroom, I taught seventh grade Texas history. However, I was not STAR tested in seventh grade Texas history, but my teammate was. My teammate taught seventh grade ELA. So I would support their efforts in the classroom by creating ELA lessons that would have content from my Texas history class. So I can indicate that here in Beacon without having to go bother my sweet teammate. I can look at the ELA standards and then filter into grade level. So I can go here, grab those seventh grade standards, and I now have the standards that I want to utilize to build a cross-curricular lesson for seventh grade Texas history with content from seventh grade ELA. I can grab standards from there. I can also get lessons from seventh grade ELA as well by utilizing the filters here for subject, again, ELA. And then I can filter to the grade level for seventh grade history. So you can see how Beacon is able, and I don't have any content specifically here in my demo site for that, but you can see how you can build different types of lessons and collaborate here in real time with each other using your Beacon planner. So if you'd like more information about Beacon or if you have any questions, please reach out to us.